A dying billionaire abandons his wealth to live as a homeless man, searching for someone worthy of his fortune. Before we start, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. The leather chair in Dr. Mitchell's office had never felt so cold. Harrison Wells ran his fingers over its smooth surface, wondering how many others had sat here receiving similar news. The morning sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated dust particles dancing in the air, making the moment feel surreal, almost beautiful in its finality. 6 months, maybe 8 with aggressive treatment. Dr. Mitchell's voice carried the weight of 20 years of friendship alongside professional concern. Harrison, we need to start immediately. I can get you into a trial. No. Harrison's response came faster than he'd expected, surprising even himself. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward, his white coat crinkling. This isn't like declining a business deal. We're talking about your life. Harrison stood, walking to the window. 45 floors up, the people below looked like ants, scurrying between skyscrapers with their paper coffee cups and briefcases. He'd been one of them just yesterday, hadn't he? Amazing how a single blood test could change everything. What's the point of extending a sterile man's life? Harrison turned, a bitter smile playing at his lips. My fortune will go to distant cousins who'll squander it on yachts and cocaine, or worse, charity boards that'll waste it on administrative costs. This isn't like you, Dr. Mitchell protested. You've never been one to give up. Your company? My company is exactly why I can't waste time on treatment. Harrison returned to his seat, pulling out his phone. With a few taps, he showed Dr. Mitchell the screen. Look at these numbers. Every charity I've donated to, their success rates, their actual impact. Pathetic. Money isn't enough. It needs direction. Purpose. Dr. Mitchell's face softened with concern. What are you planning? Harrison pocketed his phone, his mind already racing with possibilities. I want to see the real world, James. Not from a boardroom, not from charity galas. I want to find someone truly worthy of this fortune. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Standing again, Harrison straightened his $10,000 suit. By becoming invisible. He walked to the door, then paused. Don't try to talk me out of this. And don't tell anyone about my condition. Harrison, wait. But he was already gone, his footsteps echoing down the sterile hospital corridor. In his mind, he was already transforming, shedding the trappings of wealth like a snake sheds its skin. He thought of his empty penthouse, of the succession of trophy wives who'd left when they discovered he couldn't give them children, of the hollow victories in the boardroom. 6 months. It wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough. Enough to find meaning in a life that had been measured solely in dollars and cents until now. Enough to leave behind something more valuable than money. As he stepped into his waiting car, Harrison Wells, CEO, philanthropist, terminal patient, began to disappear. By tomorrow, a different man would emerge. Nameless, faceless, one of the invisible people he'd spent his life stepping over on the street. 3 weeks on the streets of Providence had taught Harrison Wells more than 30 years in the boardroom. Lesson 1. Every doorway was someone's territory. Lesson 2. Pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. He shifted on his flattened cardboard box, pulling his threadbare coat tighter against the autumn chill. The designer stubble he'd cultivated in his old life had grown into a matted beard, and his carefully manicured nails were now broken and dirty. The transformation was complete, too complete, perhaps. Even his own secretary had walked past him yesterday, her heels clicking on the pavement mere inches from his face. Move it, old man. A group of teenagers kicked his cup of coins, sending quarters and dimes skittering across the sidewalk. Harrison watched them scatter, remembering how he used to toss $100 bills to homeless people from his car window, feeling magnanimous. He'd never stopped to see if they picked up the money or if the wind had blown it away. Don't let them get to you, friend. The voice belonged to Mickey, a Vietnam vet who'd been showing Harrison the ropes. Some people need to make others feel small to feel big themselves. Harrison nodded, gathering his scattered coins. His fingers, numb from the cold, fumbled with each piece. A woman in a business suit stopped to help, her expensive perfume a sharp contrast to his unwashed state. Here, she said, pressing a $20 bill into his hand. Get yourself something hot to eat. Before he could thank her, she was gone, swallowed by the stream of commuters. Harrison stared at the money, understanding for the first time how a simple act of kindness could burn like acid when wrapped in pity. Sandwich cart's coming, Mickey announced, nodding toward the corner where Ben, another regular, was already lining up. You joining us today? Harrison started to decline. He had his own money hidden away for emergencies, but stopped himself. This wasn't about survival. It was about understanding. The sandwich cart owner, a heavy-set man named Frank, gave out day-old subs to the homeless every afternoon. Harrison joined the line, watching the careful choreography of giving and receiving. Some, like Mickey, chatted with Frank about baseball. Others kept their eyes down, shame radiating from their hunched shoulders. "Hey, we got a new face." Frank's booming voice carried down the street as Harrison approached. "What's your story, brother?" Harrison opened his mouth to give his practiced lie about losing his job, but what came out instead was, "I'm looking for something." Frank's eyes crinkled. "Aren't we all? Here, try the turkey. It's actually fresh today." As Harrison took the sandwich, a commotion erupted further down the street. A well-dressed man was yelling at a homeless woman who'd apparently been sleeping in the doorway of his shop. "I've called the cops," the shop owner threatened. "This time they're taking you in." Harrison watched the woman gather her belongings with trembling hands. Without thinking, he approached them, his feet carrying him forward before his mind could catch up. "Sir," he began, his CO voice slipping out automatically. "Perhaps we could." "Stay out of this, you bum." The shop owner's face contorted with disgust. "Or you'll be next." The old Harrison Wells would have bought the building and evicted the shop owner out of spite. But that Harrison was gone, along with his power to force change through money. This Harrison could only watch as the woman shuffled away, clutching a garbage bag full of possessions to her chest. He followed her to the park, where she collapsed onto a bench, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I have a spot," he heard himself saying. "Under the bridge by the river. It's dry and the police rarely check there." She looked up, mascara from better days streaked across her cheeks. "Why would you help me?" "Because someone should." As they walked to the bridge together, Harrison realized he'd learned another lesson. True invisibility meant seeing others who were invisible too. He'd spent 3 weeks looking for someone worthy of his fortune, but maybe the real treasure was in the search itself. Then he heard the voice that would change everything. "Dad." Harrison turned. A boy of about 12 stood on the path, staring at him with eyes that seemed impossibly familiar. "Dad, it's really you." "You've got the wrong person, kid." Harrison's voice came out rougher than intended, his throat tight with unexpected emotion. The homeless woman he'd been helping had already slipped away, leaving him alone with this boy who stared at him with unwavering certainty. "No, I don't." The boy stepped closer, his backpack clutched tight against his chest like a shield. "You're Harrison Wells. You met my mom, Sarah Coleman, at a fundraiser in Boston 13 years ago." Harrison's heart skipped a beat. Sarah Coleman. He remembered her, a catering staff member with a quick wit and infectious laugh. They'd spent one weekend together before he'd ended it, like he ended all his brief relationships back then. His usual excuses about being too busy for commitment hiding the real reason. His inability to father children. "That's impossible," Harrison said, more to himself than the boy. I couldn't have kids." Tyler pulled a folded paper from his backpack. "Mom told me. But she also told me about this." Harrison took the paper with trembling hands. It was a medical report from Boston General, dated 13 years ago. His eyes caught on phrases that shattered his world. Temporary condition. Stress-induced. Fertility likely to return with treatment. "Mom tried to tell you," Tyler continued, his voice small but steady. "She came to your office when she found out she was pregnant. Your secretary said you were in Europe. She tried calling but you'd changed your number." Harrison sank onto a nearby bench, his legs no longer able to support him. He remembered now, changing his number after a bitter ex had started harassing him. Moving to Europe for 6 months to oversee a company merger. All his careful walls of isolation, accidentally shutting out something precious. "You're 12?" he asked, studying the boy's face. He could see it now, his mother's eyes but his own jaw, his own way of standing with shoulders squared against uncertainty. "Almost 13. And I have a sister." Harrison's head snapped up. "What?" "A twin. Emma." Mom had to give her up." Tyler's composure cracked slightly. "We couldn't afford the medical treatments for both of us. The doctor said we had some rare genetic thing. Mom chose me because I was sicker then, but Emma?" He swallowed hard. "Now she's the one who needs help." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Not only had he been wrong about his sterility, but he had 2 children, twins, and one of them was sick. The cosmic irony of spending weeks searching for someone to help while his own flesh and blood needed him struck him like a physical blow. "How did you find me?" Harrison managed to ask. "I've been looking for months. Mom got sick, not bad sick, just flu, but it made me realize I needed to find you. I saw a picture of you in the newspaper from some charity thing. Then last week, this website posted about the mysterious disappearance of Harrison Wells. They had pictures of you going into that doctor's office but never coming out. I started checking homeless shelters, thinking. Tyler's voice trailed off. Thinking what? Mom always said you were different from other rich guys. That you actually cared about people. When I saw you disappeared, I thought maybe you were doing something important. Something more than just business stuff. Harrison stared at his dirty hands, remembering the pristine offices where he'd once signed million-dollar deals. Your mother gave you a very generous interpretation of my character. She also said you were too hard on yourself. Tyler sat beside him on the bench, careful to leave space between them. I need to know something. Are you sick? Is that why you're out here? The direct question, delivered with such young but clear-eyed concern, broke something in Harrison's carefully constructed walls. Yes. Bad sick. Yes. Tyler nodded, processing this with a maturity that made Harrison's chest ache. Then we don't have much time. Emma's doctors say she needs a transplant within 2 months. They're looking for matches, but our condition is really rare and… Where is she? Harrison interrupted, his mind already racing with possibilities. California. She was adopted by a family in San Francisco. Tyler pulled out another paper, this one a wrinkled photograph showing a girl with his smile and Sarah's delicate features. Mom kept track of her through the adoption agency. She always hoped. Harrison stood abruptly, his decision made. Take me to your mother. Now. Now. There's a lot we need to discuss and very little time to waste. He held out his hand, then remembered his current state and started to withdraw it. Tyler grabbed it anyway, his small fingers wrapping around Harrison's with surprising strength. I don't care that you're dirty, you know? I'm just glad I found you. For the first time since his diagnosis, Harrison felt tears prick at his eyes. He'd spent weeks looking for someone worthy of his legacy, never imagining that legacy had been walking the earth for 12 years, carrying his DNA and his hope for the future. Tyler, he said softly, testing the name of a son he never knew he had, I'm glad you found me too. The apartment building in South Providence looked like it was holding itself together through sheer stubbornness. Harrison followed Tyler up 3 flights of creaking stairs, his heart pounding from more than just the climb. He'd taken time only to wash his face in a gas station bathroom, but his homeless disguise remained largely intact. He wasn't ready to shed it yet, wasn't ready to be Harrison Wells again. Mom's probably still at work, Tyler said, fishing a key from his backpack. She picks up extra shifts at the diner on Thursdays. The apartment was small but meticulously clean, with second-hand furniture arranged to make the space feel larger than it was. Tyler's schoolbooks were stacked neatly on a coffee table, and a collection of framed photos lined one wall. Harrison's eyes caught on one showing a much younger Sarah holding 2 newborn babies. That's the only picture we have of all of us together, Tyler said quietly. They took Emma right after. Before Harrison could respond, a key turned in the lock. Sarah Coleman stepped into her apartment and froze, the grocery bag in her arms slipping slightly. Tyler, what? Her eyes widened as she recognized Harrison despite his ragged appearance. Oh my God. Hi, Sarah. Harrison's voice came out barely above a whisper. The grocery bag hit the floor, apples rolling across worn linoleum. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, years of carefully contained emotions suddenly threatening to overflow. Mom, I can explain, Tyler started, but Sarah cut him off. You went looking for him. It wasn't a question. After I specifically told you not to. Emma's getting worse, Tyler said, his voice cracking. The doctor said. Tyler, go to your room. Mom? Now. Once Tyler's door clicked shut, Sarah turned to Harrison, her eyes hard. If you're here to throw money at us and disappear again, save your breath. We've managed this long without. I'm dying. Harrison hadn't meant to blurt it out like that, but there it was. Terminal cancer. 6 months, maybe less. Sarah sank into a kitchen chair. What? I didn't know about them, Sarah. About any of it. I swear. He remained standing, afraid to move closer. I thought I was sterile. Had been told that my whole life. If I'd known. Would it have made a difference? The bitterness in her voice cut deep. The great Harrison Wells, deigning to acknowledge a catering staff member and his illegitimate children. Yes. His response was immediate, surprising them both with its intensity. It would have made all the difference. Sarah studied him, really looked at him for the first time. What happened to you? Why are you dressed like? I've been living on the streets. Trying to find. He laughed softly, the sound hollow. I don't even know what anymore. Purpose? Redemption? And then Tyler found me instead. He's too smart for his own good. A hint of pride crept into Sarah's voice. Just like his sister. Tell me about Emma. Harrison finally sat down, his legs trembling. Everything. Sarah got up and retrieved a worn medical file from a drawer. They both have something called Fanconi anemia. It's genetic, a rare blood disorder that affects bone marrow function. Tyler was sicker as a baby, needed constant transfusions. The doctors said they'd both eventually need transplants, but we could only afford to keep one. Her voice broke. Do you know what it's like to have to choose between your children? Harrison's heart constricted. The adoption agency, they promised Emma would go to someone who could afford her care? The Marshalls. They're good people, teachers in San Francisco. They had good insurance, family support. Sarah pulled out another photo, more recent, showing Emma in a hospital bed. But the disease is progressing faster than anyone expected. She needs a bone marrow transplant soon, and Tyler. She swallowed hard. He's starting to show symptoms too. Harrison reached for the photo with trembling hands. Emma looked so small against the white hospital sheets, but her smile, his smile, beamed through her obvious illness. I can help, he said. I have resources, connections. It's not that simple anymore. Sarah's voice was tired. The Marshalls are her legal parents. They've been trying experimental treatments, but nothing's working. And Tyler's starting to need transfusions again. The doctors say both kids will need transplants within months, and finding two compatible donors. She shook her head. The odds are astronomical. Harrison stood up so suddenly his chair scraped against the floor. Test me. What? As their biological father, I could be a match. Test me for both of them. Sarah stared at him. Harrison, you just said you're dying. Exactly. He began pacing the small kitchen. I have 6 months. They need transplants within months. If I'm a match. No. Sarah stood too. You can't seriously be suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that for the first time in my life, this curse might actually be a blessing. He stopped pacing, faced her directly. I've spent my whole life accumulating wealth, Sarah, thinking it could solve any problem. But money can't save our children. This, he gestured to himself, this might be the only thing I have that's actually worth something. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Sarah whispered, Why were you really living on the streets? Harrison sank back into his chair. I wanted to find someone worthy of inheriting my fortune. Someone who would use it to make a real difference. He laughed softly. I never imagined I'd find my own children instead. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. The Marshalls won't just let you swoop in and take over Emma's care. They've raised her for 12 years. Then we'll work with them. Together. Harrison pulled out his phone, the one thing he'd kept from his old life. Let me make some calls. Get the best doctors, coordinate care between here and California. He looked up at Sarah. Let me try to make up for lost time. After what felt like an eternity, she nodded. Tyler, she called out, you can come out now. The boy emerged from his room, eyes red but determined. Are we going to help Emma? Harrison and Sarah exchanged a look. Yes, they said in unison. But first, Harrison added, I need to become myself again. He looked down at his ragged clothes. I can't help anyone if I'm invisible. Tyler stepped forward and hugged him, dirt and all. You were never invisible to me. The transformation from homeless man back to Harrison Wells took exactly 23 minutes in his penthouse bathroom. The beard disappeared, the matted hair was trimmed, and designer clothes replaced the ragged layers. But the man in the mirror was neither the cold CO he'd been nor the street dweller he'd become. Someone new stared back at him, someone with purpose burning in his eyes. The blood tests came back, Dr. Mitchell said, pacing his office. Harrison, you're a perfect match for both children. But, he held up a hand to stop Harrison's relieved exhale, attempting 2 bone marrow donations in your condition would be suicide. How long? Harrison's voice was steady. How long would it give them? The transplants could cure them completely. But you? Dr. Mitchell collapsed into his chair. The procedures would accelerate your condition dramatically. We're talking weeks, not months. Harrison stood at the familiar window, but this time he wasn't watching the people below. His reflection showed a man who finally knew his purpose. Get everything ready. I want a team assembled. Did you hear what I just said? James? Harrison turned to his friend. For the first time in my life I can give something that money can't buy. Don't ask me not to. A knock interrupted them. Sarah and Tyler stood in the doorway, both looking uncomfortable in the pristine medical office. The hospital in San Francisco sent Emma's latest results, Sarah said, clutching a manila envelope. Her hands were shaking. It's not good. Harrison crossed the room in 3 strides, taking the envelope. The numbers on the page made his heart sink. Emma's condition was deteriorating faster than they'd thought. "We need to move now," he said. "Today." "The marshals are refusing to talk to us," Sarah replied. "They've hired lawyers. They're saying any attempt to contact Emma will be seen as harassment." Tyler, who'd been quietly observing everything with those 2 wise eyes, spoke up. "But she's dying. Don't they want to save her?" "They're scared," Harrison said, an idea forming. "They think we're trying to take her away." He turned to Dr. Mitchell. "Call the head of pediatric oncology at San Francisco General. Tell them Harrison Wells is offering to fund a new wing for rare genetic disorders. I'll be on the next flight out." "Harrison," Dr. Mitchell warned, "flying in your condition? Book 3 tickets," Harrison continued as if he hadn't heard. "Sarah, Tyler, pack your bags. We're going to California." "What's your plan?" Sarah asked. "The marshals are teachers, right? They've dedicated their lives to helping children. They're not our enemies, they're Emma's parents as much as we are. We need to show them this isn't about taking their daughter away. It's about saving her life." 4 hours later they were airborne. Harrison sat by the window of his private jet, watching Tyler sleep across 2 seats while Sarah nervously shredded a paper cup. "I looked you up," she said quietly, "while you were getting cleaned up. Your disappearance made quite a splash in the business world. There are rumors your company is being sold." "It is." Harrison didn't take his eyes off Tyler. "I signed the papers this morning. The proceeds will be split between Emma and Tyler in a medical trust. Whatever happens to me, they'll always have the care they need. You're really doing this?" It wasn't a question. "You're giving up everything?" "No." He finally turned to her. "I'm giving it to the only people who matter." His phone buzzed. Dr. Mitchell had sent Emma's complete medical file. Harrison's vision blurred as he looked at her latest photo. She had Sarah's gentle features but his determination. Even pale and hospital-bound, she was smiling. "She plays violin," Sarah said, looking at the photo over his shoulder. "The marshals made sure she had lessons. She's quite good, apparently." "Tyler plays too," Harrison remembered seeing a case in the apartment. "Piano?" Sarah nodded. "Self-taught mostly. He watches YouTube tutorials." They've never met, but somehow they both ended up musical. The plane hit turbulence, making Harrison wince. The pain in his chest was getting worse, but he couldn't let it show. There would be time for pain later. Right now he had a family to reunite and children to save. His phone buzzed again. A text from his legal team. Marshals agreed to meeting. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., hospital conference room. They'll see us," he told Sarah. "Tomorrow morning." "And if they say no?" Harrison watched the clouds outside turn golden with sunset. "They won't. They love Emma as much as we do. Love like that builds bridges, it doesn't burn them." Tyler stirred in his sleep, murmuring something about his sister. Harrison felt the weight of the medical file in his hands, thinking of the 2 children who shared his DNA, his love of music, and a deadly disease he might just be able to cure. The price would be his life. But looking at his sleeping son and thinking of the daughter he hadn't met yet, Harrison knew it was a bargain. San Francisco General Hospital smelled the same as any other hospital, antiseptic and anxiety. Harrison stood at Emma's window, watching his daughter sleep through the glass. 12 years of lost moments hit him at once. First steps, first words, first day of school, all experienced by the couple now walking toward him down the sterile hallway. The marshals looked exactly like their teaching backgrounds would suggest. Sensible shoes, kind faces lined with worry. Catherine Marshall's hand was tight around her husband David's arm as they approached. "Mr. Wells," David's voice carried equal parts awe and suspicion. "When they said Harrison Wells wanted to meet us. Thank you for agreeing to see us." Harrison turned from the window. "How is she today?" "Her fever's up again," Catherine answered automatically, then caught herself as if remembering she was speaking to a stranger. Her eyes darted to Sarah and Tyler, standing quietly nearby. "I assume you're Sarah Coleman." Sarah stepped forward. "And this is Tyler. Emma's twin." The silence that followed was deafening. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth as she really looked at Tyler, seeing Emma's features mirrored in his face. "Perhaps we should move this to the conference room," Harrison suggested gently. "There's a lot to discuss." The conference room felt too small for the weight of the conversation it needed to hold. Dr. Chin, Emma's oncologist, had joined them, spreading out test results and medical charts. The genetic match is remarkable, she explained, pointing to Harrison's test results. A parental match is always valuable, but in this case Mr. Wells's bone marrow could be exactly what Emma needs. And what about Tyler? Catherine asked, surprising everyone. She was looking at the boy with tears in her eyes. His tests. Also declining, Dr. Chin confirmed. Both children need transplants within months. Weeks in Emma's case, David added quietly. His teacher's demeanor cracked slightly. She can barely hold her violin now. Her hands shake too much. Tyler's head snapped up. She plays violin? I play piano. I always wanted to. The simple comment seemed to break something in the room's tension. Catherine reached across the table and took Tyler's hand. She has recitals every month, she said softly. Well, she did. Before she got too sick. She always said she wished she had someone to duet with. Harrison watched the interaction, feeling the ground shift. I'm not here to disrupt your family, he said. Emma is your daughter in every way that matters. But she's also Tyler's sister, and they both need help that I can provide. At what cost? David asked sharply. Our lawyer looked into you, Mr. Wells. You're terminally ill. This procedure could kill you. I'm dying anyway, Harrison replied calmly. The only question is whether my death can save our children. Our children. The phrase hung in the air, its significance not lost on anyone. Sarah spoke up, her voice steady. We're not asking to take Emma away. We're asking to save her life. And maybe, she glanced at Tyler, maybe give both our children a chance to know each other before it's too late. Catherine stood abruptly and walked to the window. David followed, and they had a fierce whispered conversation. Harrison could see their reflection in the glass, two people wrestling with fear and hope in equal measure. Finally they turned back. We want to talk to Emma first, Catherine said. She's old enough to understand, to have a say. Of course, Harrison agreed. And we have conditions, David added. Any relationship moving forward has to be on Emma's terms. No pressure, no demands. Agreed. One more thing. Catherine looked directly at Harrison. If you do this, if you give up your life for our children, we want them to know each other. Really know each other. Tyler will always have a place in our home. Sarah's quiet sob broke the formal atmosphere. Catherine crossed the room and hugged her, two mothers united by love for the same little girl. A nurse appeared at the door. Emma's awake. Harrison felt his heart stutter. Catherine wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Would you like to meet your daughter, Mr. Wells? He couldn't speak, could only nod. As they walked toward Emma's room, he felt Tyler's small hand slip into his. She likes music, Tyler whispered. Just like me. Yes, Harrison managed, his voice rough with emotion. Just like you. The door to Emma's room loomed ahead, and with it, the beginning of the hardest and most important chapter of Harrison Wells's life. Emma's hospital room was painted with butterflies, an attempt to make the sterile space feel more like a 12-year-old's bedroom. She sat propped up against pillows, her dark hair tied back with a purple ribbon that matched her pajamas. When Harrison entered behind the marshals, his eyes, fixed on him with an intelligence that took his breath away. Emma, Catherine said gently, there are some people here who would like to meet you. But Emma was already looking past Harrison at Tyler. The twins stared at each other with an intensity that made the adults in the room fade into background noise. Finally Emma spoke, her voice soft but steady. You play piano. I heard you in my dreams. Tyler stepped forward. You play violin. I heard you too. Harrison watched as his children met for the first time, communicating in a language that went beyond words. Emma's pale face broke into a smile that transformed her from a sick child into a luminous presence. Mom, she turned to Catherine. He looks like me. Yes, sweetheart. Catherine sat on the edge of the bed. That's because, well, Tyler is your twin brother. Emma's eyes widened, then moved to Harrison. Then you must be. Yes. Harrison's voice cracked on the single word. I'm your biological father. Are you sick too? The directness of her question startled him. You look tired like I feel sometimes. Harrison moved closer to her bed, drawn by an instinct he didn't know he possessed. Yes, I'm sick. But that's actually why I'm here. I might be able to help you and Tyler. With bone marrow, Emma nodded. I heard the doctors talking. They said they needed a perfect match. She studied Harrison's face. Are you going to die? The room went still. Catherine made a small sound of protest, but Emma's gaze remained steady on Harrison. She had the same unflinching directness he'd seen in Tyler. "Yes," Harrison answered honestly. "But if it works, you and Tyler will live." Emma considered this with a gravity beyond her years. "Can Tyler stay? I want to play music with him." "Of course," David answered quickly. "Tyler and Sarah can visit whenever you want." "Good." Emma turned back to Tyler. "Do you know Vivaldi?" "I can learn." Tyler moved to sit on the edge of her bed. "I learn songs pretty fast from YouTube. I have all the sheet music." "Mom?" She looked at Catherine, then Sarah, then back to Catherine, momentarily confused. "You can call us both Mom," Sarah said softly. "If you want." Emma nodded, then continued as if the momentous permission had been just another simple fact. "Mom has all my music books here. Maybe we could try something easy first." The adults watched as Tyler and Emma bent their heads together over sheet music, discussing tempo and key signatures as if they'd known each other all their lives. Perhaps, Harrison thought, in some way they had. Dr. Chin appeared at the door, gesturing for Harrison to step outside. In the hallway, she handed him a thick folder of test results. "The latest results confirm it," she said without preamble. "You're a perfect match for both of them." "But Harrison." She gripped his arm. "A double donation in your condition. We're talking days, maybe a week afterward." Harrison watched through the window as Emma showed Tyler how to mark rhythm counts on the sheet music. "How soon can we do it?" "You'd need to start prep immediately. The first donation would be in 3 days, the second 3 days after that." "But Harrison, the pain." "Will be manageable," he cut her off. "What are their chances without the transplant?" Dr. Chen's silence was answer enough. "Then we start today." Harrison turned back to Emma's room, where Tyler was now demonstrating something on air piano keys while Emma laughed. The sound of her laughter, so like Tyler's, so like his own forgotten joy, cemented his resolve. "There's one more thing," Dr. Chen added. "The press somehow got wind of this. Harrison Wells's mysterious disappearance was already news, but now, they're calling it the billionaire's last gift. Reporters are trying to get into the hospital." Harrison hadn't considered this aspect, but of course, his disappearance, reappearance, and impending sacrifice would be irresistible to the media. "Keep them away from the children," he said firmly. "I'll handle the press if necessary." He stepped back into the room just as Emma was attempting to demonstrate proper violin hold, her hands shaking with the effort. Without thinking, Harrison moved to steady her arm. "Like this?" he said softly, adjusting her grip. Everyone stared at him. "What?" "I played in college. Not well, but—" He smiled at Emma's surprised delight. "Music runs in the family, it seems. Will you play with us?" Emma asked. "Before the surgery?" Harrison felt the weight of time pressing down on him, heard Dr. Chen's warnings echo in his mind. But looking at his daughter's hopeful face, at his son's encouraging nod, he found himself saying, "Yes. We'll make music together." Catherine quietly produced a violin from a case near the bed. Harrison took it with trembling hands, and for the next hour, the strange new family made music together. Emma on her violin, Tyler working out accompaniment on his air piano, and Harrison playing simple harmony lines that brought tears to both mothers' eyes. It wasn't perfect. Emma tired quickly and Harrison's technique was rusty. But in that room, with butterfly drawings on the walls and hope hanging delicate as spider silk between them, it was everything. Later, as Emma drifted off to sleep, Harrison heard her whisper, "I always knew someone was missing. I could feel it in the music." The media circus outside San Francisco General had grown exponentially overnight. Harrison watched from Emma's window as reporters camped on the sidewalk below, their cameras pointed expectantly at the hospital entrance. The story had captured the public imagination, a billionaire choosing death to save his recently discovered children. "You don't have to do this," Sarah said softly, joining him at the window. "There are other options. Experimental treatments. Which might take months we don't have." Harrison turned away from the window. In Emma's bed, his daughter slept fitfully, her fever rising again. Tyler dozed in a chair nearby, exhausted from his own worsening symptoms. "They need the transplants now. But both." Sarah's voice cracked. "Couldn't you just choose?" Harrison's bitter laugh held no humor. "Like you had to choose between them 12 years ago? No. I won't let another parent face that impossible decision." The door opened and Dr. Chin entered with Catherine and David Marshall. The past 3 days had forged an unlikely alliance between the two families, united by their love for the children and the weight of what was to come. "The press is requesting a statement," Dr. Chin said. "They're spinning all sorts of narratives. It might be better to control the story. Harrison nodded. I'll speak to them. But first. He looked at the four parents, biological and adoptive, who would carry on after he was gone. We need to discuss arrangements. Catherine stepped forward, clutching a folder. We've already filed the paperwork. Joint custody, shared holidays, complete transparency between families. Emma and Tyler will never be separated again. And the trust? Harrison asked. Sarah nodded. Set up as you specified. Both children's medical care covered for life, college funds, everything. Good. Harrison winced as a wave of pain hit him. The prep work for the donation was already taking its toll. Then there's just one thing left. He pulled out an envelope and handed it to David. This is for the children. When they're older, when they ask why, give them this. Emma stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about music. Harrison moved to her bedside, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. The gesture felt both foreign and achingly natural. Dad. Her eyes fluttered open. Even sick, she'd started calling him that almost immediately, as if making up for lost time. Is it time? Almost, sweetheart. He forced a smile. The doctors need to talk to me first. Try to rest. Will you play again? Before? Of course. Tyler woke at their voices, immediately alert. The surgery's today? Mine is, Harrison confirmed. Yours and Emma's will be in a few days. But after your second donation. Tyler's voice trailed off, unable to finish the thought. After that, you and your sister will be healthy. Harrison touched his son's cheek. That's all that matters. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. Mr. Wells? The press is getting restless. Harrison straightened, squaring his shoulders. Right. Let's get this over with. The hospital had set up a small podium in the lobby. As Harrison approached it, flanked by both families and Dr. Chen, camera flashes erupted like lightning. He looked down at his prepared statement, then folded it and put it away. My name is Harrison Wells, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. 3 weeks ago, I disappeared from public life because I received a terminal diagnosis. I chose to spend my remaining time living among the homeless, searching for someone worthy of inheriting my fortune. He paused, letting the irony sink in. Instead, I found something far more valuable, a family I never knew I had. 2 children, twins, both suffering from a rare genetic disease. Both needing a transplant that I alone can provide. The cameras clicked frantically as he continued. The media wants to paint this as a tragedy or a sacrifice. It's neither. It's a gift, the first real gift I've ever been able to give. Money can buy hospitals and fund research, but it can't buy time. It can't buy the chance to hear your children play music together. It can't buy the right to give them a future, even if you won't be there to see it. Harrison gripped the podium as another wave of pain hit him. I've lived a fortunate life, but not a particularly meaningful one. Tomorrow that changes. Tomorrow I begin the process of giving my children something more valuable than my money, a chance to live, to grow up, to make their own music. Mr. Wells. A reporter called out. Some are calling this suicide. How do you respond? Harrison smiled. I'm already dying. The only choice is whether my death can have purpose. He looked back at his children, both watching him with those matching determined expressions. I've made my choice. The questions erupted, but Harrison was already turning away. He had precious little time left, and he didn't intend to waste it on cameras and microphones. Back in Emma's room, he picked up the violin. What shall we play? Bach, Emma said firmly. The one about joy. As Harrison lifted the violin to his chin, he caught sight of his reflection in the window. Behind him, 2 families had become one, drawn together by love and loss and the power of choice. Tomorrow would bring pain and fear and uncertainty. But today there was music. The first donation was brutal. Harrison drifted in and out of consciousness as doctors extracted bone marrow from his hip, the pain medication barely taking the edge off. Through the haze, he heard Dr. Chen's voice. His vitals are dropping. We need to stabilize. In the recovery room, he fought to stay awake. Emma would receive his marrow tomorrow. He needed to hold on, needed to see. Dad. Tyler's voice penetrated the fog. Emma's asking for you. Harrison forced his eyes open. Tyler stood beside his bed, looking small in his hospital gown. His own procedure was scheduled for next week, after Harrison's second donation. Help me up, Harrison whispered. Mr. Wells, you need to rest, a nurse protested, but Harrison was already pushing himself upright, gritting his teeth against the pain. I need to see my daughter. Tyler slipped his shoulder under his father's arm, surprisingly strong for his size. Together they made their slow way to Emma's room. Sarah and the Marshalls were already there, their faces showing the strain of the past few days. Emma lay in her bed, pale but alert. Her eyes widened at Harrison's appearance. "You look worse than I do." Harrison managed a weak laugh as he sank into the chair beside her. "Just tired, sweetheart. Big day tomorrow. Are you scared?" Her question cut through the adult pretenses. "No," he said, and was surprised to find it true. "I'm not scared at all." Catherine Marshall stepped forward, brushing Emma's hair back. "The doctors say the procedure has an excellent chance of success. By this time tomorrow, I'll have part of you inside me," Emma finished. "Like a permanent hug." Harrison's vision blurred. He reached for Emma's hand, finding Tyler's there already. For a moment they sat in silence, three parts of a whole that had taken too long to find each other. "Play for me?" Emma asked suddenly. "One last time before tomorrow?" Harrison looked at his trembling hands. "I don't think I can hold the violin." "Then sing," she insisted. "Mom C says you were humming Bach yesterday when they were prepping you." So Harrison sang, his voice rough but true, the ancient melody filling the sterile room with warmth. Tyler joined in, then Emma, their voices weaving together in a moment of perfect harmony. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of medical procedures and waiting. Harrison drifted between consciousness and dreams, always aware of the clock ticking down to his second donation. Emma's procedure went smoothly, her small body accepting his marrow as if recognizing its own. "Her numbers are already improving," Dr. Chin reported, studying the latest test results. "But Harrison, the second extraction will happen on schedule," he finished firmly. "Tyler's ready?" "Yes, but you're not. Your body hasn't recovered from the first. Schedule it." The media continued their vigil outside, but inside the hospital, a more important vigil was taking place. Both families took shifts, someone always staying with Harrison, Emma, and Tyler. They played cards when Harrison was awake, shared stories about the twins' childhood, and slowly wove together the separate strands of their lives into something new. On the morning of the second donation, Harrison woke to find both children in his room. Emma was in a wheelchair, still recovering but with more color in her cheeks. Tyler sat cross-legged on the end of his bed. "We brought you something," Emma said. She nodded to Tyler, who pulled out a tablet. "We've been practicing," Tyler explained, pulling up a video. "When we're better, we're going to play it for real." The screen showed Emma on violin and Tyler at the hospital's lobby piano, playing the Bach piece Harrison had sung. They'd recorded it separately and spliced it together, the timing slightly off but the emotion perfect. "Your legacy," Emma said softly. "Not the money or the hospitals or anything else. Just the music." Harrison watched the video through tears, understanding finally what he'd spent his life searching for. Not an heir to his fortune, but this pure, simple love made manifest in melody. Sarah and the Marshalls found them like that, all three heads bent over the tablet, watching the video play over and over. No one mentioned that it was time, that the doctors were waiting. For a few precious minutes more, they simply existed together in the space between notes. Finally, Dr. Chin appeared at the door. "It's time." Harrison looked at his children, his magnificent, brave, musical children, and felt nothing but peace. "Tyler," he said softly, "take care of your sister." "Emma," he turned to his daughter, "take care of your brother." "We'll take care of each other," they said in unison. As the orderlies wheeled him toward the operating room, Harrison heard it, faint but clear, drifting down the hospital corridor. His children, singing him into his final surgery with the Bach melody they'd made their own. In the end, it wasn't the pain he felt, but the music. 1 year later, the homeless shelter's grand opening drew a modest crowd, mostly local news outlets and community leaders. No national media this time, they'd moved on to other stories, other dramas. But the people who mattered were all there. Emma and Tyler stood together at the podium, healthy and strong, their matching Wells Coleman Music Academy for Homeless Youth t-shirts bright in the morning sun. Behind them, their mothers, both Sarah and Catherine, held hands, while David managed the audiovisual equipment. "Our father lived on these streets," Emma began, her voice clear and confident. "He chose to leave everything behind to find someone worthy of his legacy. Instead," Tyler continued, "he found us. And in finding us, he discovered that legacy isn't about money at all." The ribbon cutting was brief, but the real ceremony was yet to come. Inside, the shelter's main room had been transformed. Rows of chairs faced a small stage where two grand pianos gleamed under careful lighting. Along the walls, glass cases displayed violins, cellos and other instruments, all available for the shelter's residents to learn and play. The twins took their places, Emma with her violin, Tyler at one of the pianos. The sheet music before them was well worn now, practiced countless times over the past year. Bach's melody filled the room, but this time it was different. This time it was perfect. In the audience, a homeless man listened with his eyes closed, tears streaming down his weathered face. After the performance he approached the twins. "Your father," he said softly, "he sat with me once. Under the bridge. Shared his sandwich. Listened to my story." Emma and Tyler exchanged glances. They'd heard many such stories over the past year. Each one a small piece of the puzzle that was Harrison Wells's final journey. "Would you like to learn to play?" Emma asked, gesturing to the instruments. "That's why we're here." Later, after the crowds had gone and the first group of shelter residents were settling in, the families gathered in the small office that had once been Harrison's corporate boardroom. His company's building had been converted into the shelter, its upper floors now housing classrooms, practice rooms and dormitories. "Dad would have loved this," Tyler said, watching through the window as their first student, the homeless man from earlier, tentatively touched piano keys. "He does love it," Emma corrected, drawing a framed letter from her bag. It was Harrison's final message to them, the one he'd left with David to share when they were ready. They'd read it so many times the pages were soft at the corners. "Read it again?" Tyler asked, though they both knew it by heart. Emma unfolded the pages carefully. "My dearest Emma and Tyler, by the time you read this, the music we made together will be a memory. But music, like love, doesn't die with the musician. It lives on in everyone it touches. I spent my life accumulating wealth, thinking it would give my existence meaning. In the end, I found that meaning in a hospital room watching my children play a duet. Real legacy isn't in bank accounts or business empires. It's in the notes that pass between a brother and sister who were always meant to play together. I'm leaving you my fortune, yes. But more importantly, I'm leaving you with each other. Use the money to make music. Use it to help others find their songs. Use it to remind the world that no one, no matter how lost or lonely or afraid, is truly invisible. And whenever you play Bach, know that I'm there playing harmony. All my love, your father." The letter had become a ritual for them, read before every performance, every new student, every small victory in their shared mission. Sarah touched the glass of the other frame on the wall, Harrison's last press photo, taken just before his second donation. "He gave us so much more than he knew." "He knew," Catherine said softly. "At the end I think he finally knew." Outside, the first notes of a beginner's scale drifted up, halting but determined. Emma picked up her violin, Tyler moved to the piano, and their mothers settled into their usual spots to listen. David clicked on the camera. They recorded every session now, building an archive of healing through music. As the twins began to play, their song merged with the students' tentative notes below. The harmony wasn't perfect, but it was real and raw and full of hope. Just as Harrison had wanted. In the fading sunlight, two families made whole by one man's choice continued his legacy, not in dollars or buildings, but in music that made the invisible seen, the broken whole, and the lost found. And somewhere in the space between notes, Harrison Wells played along.